Little Rock Nine was a group of 9 African-American students enrolled in Little Rock Central High School in 1957. The students were initially prevented from entering the racially segregated school by Orville Faubus, the governor of Arkansas. 3 weeks earlier, Faubus had surrounded the school with National Guard troops to prevent its federal court ordered. Central High School was an all-white school and blacks were not wanted into the high school. There were fights going on outside of the school and the students were also hurt. African Americans and whites could not be together for the longest time because of so many problems that were going on. Both races faced a lot of challenges back then. They were not allowed to be on the same bus, restrooms, schools, and other facilities as the whites. The Jim Crow law, starting at the beginning of the 1880s, it legalized segregation between black and whites.
Due to all these causes, like the Board versus Brown of Education and Jim Crow laws, the Little Rock Nine was formed. The Little Rock Nine was a group of 9 African-American students whose goal was to go to Little Rock Central High School in Arkansas, which was an all-white school. On September 4th, 1957, the 9 students tried to enter the school to enroll, but they got turned away by the National Guard. Then, on September 23rd, they successfully entered the school for the first time to enroll. Around 1,000 white students and members of the community gathered in front of the school to riot. When they saw the students, they got angry and were challenging the police officers as well as yelling. A day later, the 101st Airborne Division is placed at the school under federal orders because Mayor Woodrow Mann sent President Eisenhower a telegram that asked for federal troops to maintain order within the school and to continue the integration process. A day later, on September 25th, the Little Rock Nine attended the first day of school with troop escorts. About 2 months later, the 101st left the school. In December, Minjean Brown, who was one of the 9 students, dumped a bowl of chili on a group of white male students who were taunting her. She was suspended for 6 days. She continued to have issues with white students and ended up getting suspended in February for the rest of the school year. On May 8th, Eisenhower ordered the National Guard to leave Little Rock. Ernest Green graduated on May 27, 1958, who became the first African American to graduate from Central High. In the fall of 1972, all the grades in public schools became fully integrated.
Melba Patillo Beals, Carlotta Walls Lanier, Ernest G. Green, Gloria Ray Carlmark, Jefferson Thomas, Minnie Jean Brown Trickey, Terrence J. Roberts, and Thelma Mothershed Ware were the 9 brave colored individuals that made up the Little Rock Nine. Despite major opposition, these 9 agreed to sign up to enroll at Central High School, an all-white school. Knowing how much hatred they would receive by doing so, they gained pride and determination to face all the resistance. They became known as the Little Rock Nine after their courageous actions testing the strength of school integration. While their actions not only ensured our nation access to equality education, the 9 individuals also helped establish the civil rights movement. The foundation of the Little Rock Nine and its 9 members have continued for over 50 years to devote themselves striving to advance the education for young individuals, especially those of color.
Little Rock Nine was a leading factor in the education equality movement. Little Rock Nine put 9 African Americans into a predominantly white high school. These actions by Arkansas were seen all over America and affected everyone in some way. The reason for Arkansas putting the 9 students through the white high school is a test of the Brown versus Board of Education, which declared that segregation in public schools is unconstitutional. The effect of Little Rock Nine sparked many uneasy stomachs as citizens and people all over Arkansas came to Little Rock Nine to yell slurs and also attempt to hurt the students. Governor Orville Faubus called in the Arkansas National Guard to block black students from white oppressors. President Dwight D. Eisenhower responded with more support for the students by sending in the federal troops to also help escort in the students. The significance of Little Rock Nine was strongly momentous in the attempts to start equality and end racism.
Education equality has been talked about forever. Students all around are now getting the education they need, no matter the race or where you live. The study of education equality is often linked with the study of excellence in equity. Back then, for example, school enrollment data shows that black students were non-existent in majority white schools in 1954. As a result of desegregation efforts, by 1988, U.S. schools reached peak integration rates with majority white schools shifting to 43.5% black enrollment. This helped many African American students to start going to school with the whites and get the same education that the whites are getting. In today's world, for example, in a survey from 2011 to 2012, JCP students overwhelmingly agreed to going to school with peers from diverse backgrounds would help them prepare for life after school, particularly in developing collaboration skills. There was also an act passed called No Child Left Behind. It is a law that provides money for extra education assistance for children that do not have the money and in return for improvements in their academic progress.
In the past, the African Americans were degraded in society as they had dramatically lower success rates compared to whites. Back then, the percentage of blacks with bachelor's degrees or more was 14% compared to 27% of whites. Although in today's world, African Americans still have a lower success rate than whites, they have made many changes in their education to help advance the students for their future success. For example, from 1972 to 2010, the high school dropout rate for whites dropped 14.85%, while the African American high school dropout rate dropped an immense 25.3%. Through an increase in African Americans graduating college, they are able to succeed in their career. Back then, many school teachers weren't certified, which led to lower test scores for the children. Today, for example, 37% of all teachers at Boston Public Schools are of color, and 25% of the new teachers hired are African American, and which are all certified. The United States has always been filled with a variety of different cultures, religions, and ethnicities. While African Americans for centuries have been underrepresented in terms of success, today there are several African American business people who are icons to America and have greatly succeeded. America's most beloved talk show host, Oprah Winfrey, is not only the most successful businesswoman and alpha female in the entire world, she revolutionizes every industry she sets sight on. While attending Penn State, Kenneth Frazier worked at an aquarium selling tadpoles and newts. Now Frazier is the CEO of Merck & Co. and is the first African American CEO of a pharmaceutical company, being a champion of innovation. So with that being said, the change in education from then to now has had a tremendous outcome on the African Americans in their future.
Since 1957, when schools started to be integrated, many colleges have become dominantly African American. Beforehand, white people went to one school and African American went to a different one. Those schools are known as historically black colleges and universities, or HBCUs. Across the United States, there are 99 HBCUs, but now they accept all races. Some of the best HBCUs are Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, Delaware State University, and Howard University. At Delaware State University, their current 2018 class population has a 65% African American enrollment. They were founded by the Delaware General Assembly under the provisions of the Morrill Act of 1980. For all of these HBCUs, there are many financial aid opportunities for students, such as the Tom Joyner Foundation. The Hercules Scholar is an African American student who gets awarded $1,500 from the Tom Joyner Foundation. The Scholarship and Foundation focuses on ensuring the future of HBCUs. This is not the only scholarship like this. There are so many more specifically for African Americans to further their education today.
Recognizing these disparities, the Obama administration is committed to advancing equality in education. That commitment underlies nearly every significant activity for the U.S. Department of Education. The number of black college and university professors more than doubled between 1970 and 1990. The number of physicians tripled, the number of engineers almost quadrupled, and the number of attorneys increased more than sixfold. Those numbers undoubtedly do reflect the fact that the nation's professional schools changed their admissions criteria for black applicants, accepting and often providing financial aid to African American students whose academic records were much weaker than those of many white and Asian American applicants, whom these schools were turning down. College enrollment for black and Hispanic students is up by more than 1 million since 2008, which proves and shows the improvement in education equality.